another live video for you. In this one, talking about how narcissists feel when you don't chase after them. Because it's all about the chase with the narcissist. And initially, of course, they're chasing you. They're predators, they're hunters. They're missing something, they have a void inside of them. So of course, they're constantly looking outside of themselves. They're scanning the environment, looking for something to fill this gaping hole inside of them. As a result of when a long time ago they sold their souls. As a result of having a lack of authenticity, a lack of integrity, being a manipulator, a con artist, a fraud. Of course, by doing that, it stripped their own identity away from them. They had to create this fictitious false self in order to manipulate people. And now for that reason, they have this great big void inside of them that can never be filled. To where they are now the chasers, the predators, the hunters. They're looking to hunt you down and take what you've got in an effort to fill this gaping hole inside of them. But of course, when they're chasing you, when they're preying on you, sometimes it can feel uncomfortable for them. Especially if you have a certain level of awareness of it. You realize what's going on. You recognize that what they're doing, it's shameful behavior. The way they're coming after you, they're pursuing you. They want something from you. Of course, when you recognize that, when you have the conscious awareness of it, then it triggers them to reflect on their shame, and then they feel like a bad person. So then they want to go and put that shame onto you. They want to get you to engage in shameful behavior. They want to corrupt and deprave you. And of course, everything a narcissist does, it's for attention. They want you to attend to them. They want you to put your energy and focus on them to make them feel like they exist, to make them feel like they're alive, to make them feel like their fictitious false self is actually real. Whether this is something where they initially love bomb you, or even when they're devaluing you and they're targeting your self-esteem, and then they leave you chasing after them for validation, which then makes them feel powerful. Either way, it's just whatever gets them the attention they want. Of course, some narcissists, they have to rely more on devaluation, coercion, rather than love bombing, because that's not going to get them the attention that they're looking for. So that's what we're going to be talking about today in this live video. How they feel when you don't chase them. As you may know, if you watched the live video yesterday, I'm back with Nala here in Malaysia. She's just resting at the moment. This is normally the time of day that she likes to rest. But we won't bother her now. Let's just go over here and discuss this. Let's talk about it. The narcissist cannot live without your attention because they're dead inside. There's no life inside of them, no soul. There's just nothing there. It's a parasite, a bloodsucker, a zombie, an empty vessel. And so it needs a host. It needs someone to feed off for its own nourishment, its own sustenance, which will then keep it going. And everything they do is really just for attention. It's to get you to notice them. It's to get you to have your eyes on them. And they will do anything just to get your attention. If they think that it will work. If they think it's not going to work, then they're not going to do it, obviously. They're not going to waste their time. They're not going to waste their energy. Some narcissists will love bomb you, typically those that maybe grandiose, somatic narcissists. They may love bomb you with money, gifts, vacations, sex, because they're confident in that arena. And they know all they have to do is just take you on a nice little vacation together, and you're going to enjoy that experience. It's going to leave you longing and yearning for them. Or a somatic narcissist, they know that all they have to do is seduce you, and it may leave you craving after sex with them again. And so that's what they do. Because they know exactly how to sink their teeth into you, how to hook you. But of course, once you start to catch on to them, once you start to realize what you're actually dealing with, then they're probably going to know not to mess with you in that way anymore. Because otherwise, that could be disadvantageous to them. So instead, what they're going to do is try and take you down a notch, devalue you, intimidate you, coerce you, just overall try and upset you, keep you off balance, destabilize you, maybe even rob you, take something that belongs to you, even if it's just wasting your time, your energy, stealing your money, just anything so that it takes your attention and focus off of yourself. And instead, you're then giving that energy and focus that you would otherwise be given to yourself, you're now giving that to them. And it's almost like you bond with them, especially when they're not over the top aggressive or confrontational towards you, to where you don't really know where you stand with them. And then sometimes, now and again, they're coming back and love bombing you. They're using the intermittent reinforcement. So then it gets you to kind of see them in a more positive way, even though you've already had a disagreement with them. They've devalued you, and maybe they've wasted your time, or they've stolen something from you. They've harmed you in some way, but then they still remain covert. And then by doing that, it makes it more likely for you to chase them. And that's really what they want more than anything else, is your attention. You know, all of the crazy things that narcissists do, whether they're cheating on you, they're triangulating you with other people, trying to make you envious or jealous, trying to make you feel like you're missing out, or some narcissists, they'll go and spend a bunch of money on a brand new car, a new house, a vacation, or they'll go and run off with a new supply and flaunt them in front of you. They'll devalue you, target your self-esteem, stalk you, harass you. Some of them even go so far as to attack their victims physically, even take their own life sometimes. But no matter what they're doing, it's all just for attention. Because if a narcissist was to engage in these things and they knew that no one was going to be aware of it and they weren't going to get any attention from it, then they probably wouldn't do it. They wouldn't even waste their time, because the whole point is that it gets them attention. If there was no attention, then the narcissist just wouldn't do anything. They would just implode, because they need people's eyes to be on them. They want everyone to be thinking about them, talking about them, worrying about them, to just make them feel like they exist, to make them feel like they're alive. And attention isn't always a bad thing. I mean, sometimes if it's used in the right way, it can be very beneficial. I mean, of course, I myself, I'm getting on here and making this live video. Clearly, I want viewers, I want your attention, because I'm giving you this message and I want to help you. I want to bring you this awareness. And that's the case for many people in this world who want to be leaders, and they want to motivate and inspire you, educate you. So wanting attention, that's not always a bad thing. It's bad if it's just always just for yourself, and there's no mutual benefit or gain. It's just this selfish need for attention. That's when it becomes harmful. And that's what it's like with these narcissists. It's just all about them. They just want everyone's eyes and ears to be on them. As long as there's something positive for them, of course. Where it's a situation where it will make them feel attractive or desirable, powerful or important, intelligent. Just something to validate the false self. But if it's something more negative, such as being exposed, getting into trouble, then they don't want any attention to be on them for that. It's only if it's something given to them. So that's what this all comes down to, is they want you to give to them. They want you to give parts of you to them. And not all of them may be consciously aware of this. They may not realize that they lack an identity, a sense of self, and that they're requiring you to overextend yourself and to give parts of yourself to them, to make them feel better, to make them feel more alive. They may not be consciously aware of that, but the more that you look into it, the more research you do in this, the more you will realize that that is actually the truth. And I went back and forth between this concept. I did make a video on this right at the beginning of my channel. I did a video on how it was titled "The Narcissist Wants to Be You." And as some of you may recall, one of the famous lines from that video was, it went something like, a narcissist thinks they can just put on a t-shirt similar to Kim Kardashian's, and then suddenly they're Kim Kardashian. I thought I said something like, yeah, maybe after a freak accident. But yeah, that's really what it's like. And they actually think that way. Because they're that insecure, they're that jealous or competitive, they really think that they can just do something a similar way to a celebrity, or like buy similar clothes, buy a similar car, and then suddenly they are that person. That's really how they think in their minds, because there's just no identity. They have no sense of self. And I went back and forth between this concept because, for one thing, it's just so simple. It's like, that's it. The narcissist wants to be you. That's all that it is. After all of the years of research, that's what it comes down to. And so I went back and forth between this concept, and even now, coming up to 7 years into my research, it's like the deeper you look into this, that's really what it comes down to. They want to be you, and they want you to be more like them. So they want to switch identities with you. That's really what this is. And not everything about you, but just whatever they deem to be desirable about you, the good parts of you. They want that for themselves. And it's true, because as we know, narcissists take bits and pieces from each supply that they get involved with. They steal things from you. Initially, they mirror you, and then they devalue you as they become you. And then they project the negative parts of themselves onto you. That's what they do, and they take no accountability for anything. And they just blame you. They're just becoming you. And they're causing you to become more like them. And when that happens, those of you have self-esteem, you have self-love, you want to be you, that may then leave you chasing after them for you, because they've just robbed that from you. Whether they robbed you of your time, your energy, your money, your resources, whatever it may be, your material possessions, then it makes you feel like they are the owner, the keeper of you. And so it leaves you chasing after them for that. And I know some of you may be watching this and thinking, you're a narcissist. Like, they really want to be you. And it's like, you could be a woman, they could be a man. Or you could be a man, they could be a woman, and they want to be you. But that's really how it is. They secretly admire certain things about you, and they want that for themselves. That's what they're coming around you for. That's what they're trying to get from you. Because that's how it is. When you're involved with someone and there isn't an equal exchange, so they're giving something to you and you're giving nothing back in return, the way it works is that you're adopting something from them, whether you know it consciously or not. This is the inevitable process that is going on under the radar, behind the scenes. This is what is happening. And if you look back, many of you may notice that the more time you spent with the narcissist, they went from being this angry, explosive person to suddenly becoming calm, while you were the one who was becoming more and more angry. You were becoming more and more like them. You may have felt as though you were becoming narcissistic, but you were never that way before. Because this is just what happens when you get involved with people. I myself, I am an influencer here on YouTube, but everyone that you get involved with, everyone that you're around in this world, they are influencing you at some level. A person cannot get around you and not influence you in some sort of way. And they could influence you in a way where you might want to be more like them, or you might not want to be anything like them. But in whatever way, you're being influenced. You're always being influenced by people. And by knowing that, you can use it to your advantage, as I have myself, because I've got a number of YouTubers that I've subscribed to. I don't spend much time around people outside of the internet. I more just keep by myself and research and do my work. But yeah, I've got a number of YouTubers that I follow here on YouTube, and I've been watching them for several years. And of course, their outlook on things, their qualities, their characteristics have rubbed off on me over the years, because that's just how it is. That's how it works. Such as, if you're around a group of millionaires, you're far more likely to become a millionaire yourself. If you're good friends with them, and you're with them, even once a week. And that's just how it is. When you look out into the world and you see other people, birds of a feather flock together. People of like kind gravitate towards each other. And that's why many of you may feel alone, you may feel like you don't really have any friends, because that's just how it is. It's lonely at the top. I know many of you, you're introverted, you're deep thinkers, you think things through, you have an analytical mind, and many people in this world don't. So that's why many of you may feel alone. You may feel like you don't really have anyone to talk to. And it makes a lot of sense, because there's billions of views on this topic on YouTube about narcissists. So these are the types of personalities that these narcissists are targeting. People who have something. People who are introverted, empathic, deep thinkers, analytical. People who actually invest the time and energy to research this on YouTube, to find out more about it. People who actually care. People who want to understand things, people who want things to be better. And when you realize that, it begins to make a lot of sense. Because unlike you, they don't have anything. They don't have that inside of them. That desire to learn and understand more. For knowledge and awareness. They don't really care to know anything more about themselves or other people, unless it's as a means to manipulate them. And it's no coincidence that there's so many of us who watch these videos. We all have a very similar personality. We all have these similar traits of an empath, a codependent, a people pleaser. Someone who cares, a deep thinker. It's no coincidence that we're all very similar. And yet all of these narcissists out in the world, these people who manipulated you, they tricked you, devalued you, they harmed you, exploited you, they're all pretty much the same as well. And that's how I can get on here and spit this truth about narcissists, And no matter where you're from in the world, it makes sense to you. You can relate to it. You feel like I'm talking about that exact person that you were dealing with. Because although we may not like to generalize, the reality is that they are pretty much all the same. I've never really seen a narcissist who kind of breaks the norms of what I would expect a narcissist to be. They're all pretty much the same. Of course, there's different types. There are coverts and overts, cerebrals and somatics. But they can switch back and forth as well, depending on what works for them, but the people or situations that they're dealing with. So we know that they do this for attention. Everything they do is for attention. And it's because they're disconnected from themselves. They have no sense of self. They have no self-awareness. And because of that, they feel like they don't exist. They don't feel real. They feel dead inside. So that now they need someone else's awareness. Yes, that's right. They have to target someone who is self-aware in order to derive that awareness from you and direct it towards them. They need someone who is at a certain level of consciousness and awareness. And I know many of you can relate to this. Do you feel like you are more conscious and aware than most people in this world? That's what they need from you. Because when you're directing that towards them, it makes them feel like they exist, when otherwise they wouldn't feel that way. Because they lack self-awareness, they're disconnected from themselves. Well, many of you, I know you have a very personal and intimate relationship with yourself. And that's why they love bomb you, they seduce you, or they traumatize you to then get you to direct that consciousness and awareness to them, to make them feel like they exist, when in reality, they don't exist. I did a video recently on how the narcissist isn't even real. And even psychologist Ross Rosenberg, he mentioned in one of his videos that narcissists are not real people. And they're really not. That's why they need so much attention. Yes, they may make a lot of noise. They may seem very alive. But there is even a quote that states that empty vessels make the most noise. And many of you may relate to that as well, of how you don't make much noise because you feel full inside. You don't feel empty like they do. Now they're empty, so they have to make a lot of noise, because by doing that, it then gets some attention and it fills them up. Just like extroverts, but of course not all extroverts are like that. We are talking about people who are more narcissistic, but extroverts, they do get their energy from interacting with other people. Whereas introverts, from being around other people, we get drained. By the end of the day, we are exhausted, and we need that alone time to replenish ourselves. Although I myself, at this point, I do consider myself to be an ambivert, because I can be extroverted if I'm around the right people, if I'm not around narcissists who completely drain the life out of me. And throughout my life, I feel like I was always more leaning towards the extroverted side. It's just I was around so many narcissists who were very envious of my personality. And of course, as we know, when you get involved with a narcissist, you may have been extroverted before, but they will make you more introverted. But yeah, everything they do is for attention. They want to get you to notice them in any way possible. They need your reaction. They need you to react to them. And it's not just that you may be a beautiful or handsome person. You may be very successful, and that's why they want your attention. That's why they want you to notice them. It's not just that, but it's also because you're somewhat comfortable with yourself. You're comfortable in your own skin, to where you're not running away from yourself like they do. You're not trying to escape from your own body. You're quite grounded in yourself. You're centered. So you have a certain level of consciousness and awareness of yourself. And that's why your energy, your reaction is so important to them. Because of course, to get it from you, it's very powerful for them. Because other people, they may be disconnected from themselves. They may feel very uncomfortable. They may be trying to run away. So that energy, that reaction, it isn't going to be so powerful coming from them. Because they may have done a lot of things that they're not proud of. They may have acted dishonestly. They may be fake. So it's not really going to do too much if it comes from them. And this is why they want your attention. This is why they like to trauma bond you. They steal from you, they rob you. Or they just discard you. They leave you without any closure, without an explanation. To leave you to think about them, to chase after them, to ruminate. And it's all just to get your attention. And by getting your attention, it makes them feel significant and relevant. It feeds their ego. It makes them feel important. So of course, when you don't chase after them, they're going to feel the opposite way. They're going to feel unimportant, insignificant, irrelevant. There's not going to be anything to prop up the false self. So then they're going to feel like the false self doesn't exist. There's nothing to validate it. So it will then trigger them to reflect on their true self. And that may result in narcissistic rage, passive aggression. And that's where you may need to be very cautious, because if you're not chasing after them, they're not getting your attention, they're not getting supply, then they can become very unpredictable. And I really want to emphasize the insanity of it by mentioning a hypothetical situation, although it may be something that you've experienced, where let's say a narcissist did something really horrible to you, They abused you, they traumatized you, they stole from you, they cheated on you, whatever it was. And despite that, you didn't seek closure, you didn't chase after them, and instead you just returned to yourself. You didn't let it bother you. You didn't seek revenge, and you just continued on your path, rebuilding yourself. By doing that, it irritates the narcissist, because then they're not getting any validation. There's no attention. So then there's nothing to validate the false self, and it makes them very angry, to where they may come back to abuse and sabotage you even more, to further irritate you, to further harm you. They will ramp up the abuse because they really just want that reaction. They want you to disconnect from yourself and to attach to them. So that's what can happen sometimes, and that's why if you don't chase after them, it's very likely that they will then chase after you. If you just continue on your path and you're focusing on being better, healing yourself, just living a fulfilling life, doing the right thing, that may then trigger them to chase you. Because then they're left to feel unimportant, insignificant, and irrelevant. And of course, no narcissist wants to feel that way. But in some situations, maybe if you weren't the grade A source of supply, or maybe if you were dealing with a narcissist who has a ton of options, and maybe they've got other options who they deem to be very attractive or very successful, then in those situations, if you don't chase after the narcissist, they may not chase after you. And you may never hear from them or see them ever again, or at least not for a long time. Because those types of narcissists, you're not that important to them. You're not that significant. Because if they're very superficial, they're not going to be too bothered about you being empathic or any of your wonderful qualities, and they're just going to be more searching for something superficial, someone more attractive, someone with more money, whatever it may be that they're looking for. Whether they're looking for something sexual or materialistic. And of course, those types of narcissists, they're very confident. They're not that insecure, at least not outwardly. So, at least on the surface, they believe that they can replace you. And so if you don't chase them, they'll just disappear. They won't chase you. But let's keep it real. Most narcissists are not like that. Most narcissists are not these elite people. They're not these chads. They're not like immune to rejection, but they just don't care if you cut them off because they've got all of these other options. They've got all of these supermodels waiting for them. Or they've got all of these people waiting to take them on trips around the world. I mean, let's keep it real. Most narcissists, they don't have those type of contacts. They don't have those kinds of options. That's pretty rare. So the odds are that if you don't chase the narcissist, they are going to be angry, they are going to feel worthless and insignificant, and they are going to chase after you. Unless, of course, because there is another type of narcissist who's just lost in fantasy and they're completely delusional. So they might find a new source. They might just completely downgrade after you. But then they twist it in their minds. They tell themselves that this new source is actually better than you. And when you see it, it may shock you. Because you can see that this new person is not as attractive as you are. They're not as successful. They haven't really got anything going for themselves. Maybe they live in their mother's basement. Maybe they haven't even got a job. They haven't got any motivation, any ambition in life. And yet, the narcissist puts them on a pedestal. They praise and worship them. They think they're so much better than you. And that may affect your view of yourself. But what you have to do is just recognize that this narcissist is just completely delusional. And this is actually quite common that people may see that. These delusional narcissists, who really what it is that they just can't accept that they ruined what they had with you. They can't accept that. They can't accept that they were the cause of it, that they messed it up, that they had the winning lottery ticket in their hands and they just threw it in the garbage. They'll never tell you that, of course, but that's really what that is. And so they go off and they idealize some other situation when it's like, no, they had something great with you. And what did they do? They just tossed it aside. They acted like it was nothing. They disrespected you. And of course, they don't want to accept that. They've just bruised their ego, making them feel like they did something wrong. So because they don't want to feel like they did something wrong, they messed up, because of that, they got to go off and just devalue you, idealize this new person, this new situation. And that may be why they don't chase you. So that's the third type of narcissist that many of you may be dealing with. It's either that one or it's going to be the first one that I mentioned, where they will just feel completely worthless and insignificant because maybe they're not completely delusional and they realize they can't replace you. And when they're not getting your attention, it will make them very mad. It will just leave them feeling completely insignificant. And then they want to regain that sense of significance and relevance, that sense of importance. They want to regain that because they've lost it by not having you chasing after them. But sometimes you're better off if your narcissist is delusional. And I know exactly how that feels. I've been through that myself. Where you're with this delusional narcissist and it's like they just can't even see it, how wonderful you were to them. And they downgrade, but yet they idealize this new person. And they see them as a grade A source of supply when they're quite clearly not. But they see them that way. And yes, of course, that can hurt our egos. It can make us feel unimportant, like it never meant anything, like we're just not good enough. But really, it has nothing to do with that. The narcissist, in those situations, they're just delusional. And let it be that way. Let them be delusional. Honestly, that is the best thing that can happen. It will save you so much trouble. If you just let the narcissist be delusional. Let them think that this new person, this new situation is so much better than you. Let them think that way. It will save you so much trouble. It really will. And although, yes, it may affect your sense of self, it may affect you emotionally and your self-esteem, but instead of chasing after that from them, you just got to go within, rebuild it, validate yourself, read out some positive affirmations every morning, every night. Remind yourself of who you are. Remember all of that energy you were giving to them. Start giving that energy to yourself. And you will begin to feel better in time, rather than being dependent on them for their validation. And really what that is, you're never really getting validation from a narcissist anyway. You're not. Because think about it, how can you get validation from someone who can't even validate themselves? They need you to validate them first, and then they just mirror something back to you. They take it from you the way that you saw yourself already. You already viewed yourself a certain way. You already felt good about yourself before you even got involved with them. And that's what they liked about you. That's what drew them to you. Your perception of yourself. You held yourself in high regard. And they liked that confidence because it was real, it was genuine. But then what they do when they get involved with you is, first they put you on a pedestal and it leaves you dependent on them. Sometimes they seduce you. They buy you gifts, they give you sex. And of course it can be very powerful. When they're mirroring you, they're making you feel like they're just like you. And it can feel really good. But you got to recognize that all they're doing is just reflecting you back to you. And then what they do then is they devalue you. It trauma bonds you to them. And then for the rest of it, you're just fighting to get that back of how they were initially. When all they actually did is they just got that from you. So all you need to do is just come back to yourself, come back within. And I know it may not give you that same high initially. It may not feel that exciting as it did when you gave it to them and then they gave it back to you. But you just gotta give it time. You just gotta start loving yourself again, practice self-love. That is your greatest defense against a narcissist. And what you've gotta focus on above all is how it's available to you whenever you need it. Whenever you want that, you can have it. With the narcissist, sometimes you've got to beg for it. You've got to wait for it. Whenever they feel like giving it to you. Whenever they want to make you feel good about yourself. But with you, you can do that whenever you like. Anytime you can validate you. Anytime that you want. And that's the most important part about it, is that reliability. Where it's available to you whenever you need it. And that could be something where you're reading out positive affirmations in the morning, in the night before you go to sleep. Or even just watching these videos, that can help. I'm always here for you whenever you need me. And I'm not ever going to take that away from you. So this is, these videos are clearly more reliable than these narcissists. So that's probably why there's so many views on these videos. Because it's like, well, the narcissist, you never know where you stand with them. They're very unpredictable. They're here 1 minute, gone the next. At least we know that with this content, you can get this validation whenever you need it. Validates you. It makes you feel better about you. Clears the fog. And it just centers you. It brings you back to yourself. And that's always something to remember as well. When you're seeking this clarity, this understanding, it's like all you want is just to come back to yourself. And even when we're wanting to make things right with them, we're chasing after them, trying to understand them, if you explore the process behind that, even then what you're trying to do is you're just trying to come back to yourself. They've done something to disconnect you from you, which leaves you chasing after them for that piece of you that they took from you. So, although yes, in some ways it may reveal insecurity, and yes, we should be aware of that because that's how we can then change it in the future. But it's insecurity because they've taken a part of you and you're wanting to get that back. So despite how they may have devalued you and targeted your self-esteem, it reveals that you do like you. You accept you. You do have self-esteem, you do have self-love. And again, that's why they targeted you. Because they don't have that. They want you to give your self-esteem, your self-love, your self-awareness to them. And you do that by chasing after them. Because by chasing after them, you are disconnected from yourself. You're entering this false reality where nothing is true, nothing is real. It's just all gaslighting, manipulations. And as soon as you enter that, you have to disconnect from yourself to where you're in a trance, you're under a spell, almost like you're in hypnosis. You become this puppet and then the master puppeteer. Because they've managed to get you to disconnect from yourself. But yeah, how do they feel when you don't chase them? They feel worthless. They feel inadequate. They feel like they don't matter, they don't exist. They feel irrelevant, insignificant. They just feel empty inside. And how do you feel when you don't chase them? Initially, you may feel that way as well. Because before that, you may have been trauma bonded. You may have been heavily dependent on their validation, on closure. But just give it time. Come back to yourself. Watch these videos. These videos should give you closure. And then gradually, by not chasing them, you will begin to feel better. You will begin to feel far better than if you had chased them. Chasing them is not the answer. It's like a drug. And initially, maybe the first couple of times that you're chasing them, it may release dopamine in your brain, it may flood your body with adrenaline, give you a bit of a rush. It can be exciting. Of course, chasing someone, pursuing them, it could be a very exciting thing. But then the more that you do it, it will just make you feel worse. And yet you become addicted to it. You're addicted to something that just makes you feel worse and worse each time. And that's why it's best to break the trauma bond by just cutting it off, stop chasing them, and just return back to yourself. And realize that even though you felt like you were chasing them, again, you were just chasing a part of yourself. Because you never really loved them. They mirrored you back to you. You fell in love with a version of yourself. And that's how you can actually get that same dopamine hit, that same rush of adrenaline, just by observing yourself the way that you observe them. Remember the way that you looked at them and you noticed everything about them, everything that you liked about them, which really it was just they were mirroring you. But start noticing yourself in that way. Just certain things about yourself. And it could be your sense of style, just the things that you like to do, the things that you're passionate about. It could be something physical, maybe your hair, your eyes, your voice. And just every day, in the morning and at night before you go to sleep, just reflect on yourself and remind yourself of the things that you love about yourself. And it could be something to do with your mind or something physical. But just every day, reflect on something that you love about yourself. Because if you think about it, that's what you were doing with them. You were thinking about things that you loved about them. And sometimes, let's keep it real. It may have been things that they weren't just reflecting back to you. It could have been something physical. And it could have been something like maybe the narcissist that you were with had really nice eyes, or maybe they had really long, smooth hair. It could have been something like that. And maybe it felt really comforting. It gave you this sense of safety. So that's why it can help to put that same focus on yourself, even in a physical way as well. Because sometimes that's how it is when we're trauma bonded, and especially with somatic narcissists. That's a huge part of the addiction, the sexual side of it. And we become so disconnected from ourselves when we're chasing after them. It's like sometimes you just got to remind yourself that you have a body as well. And you're a separate person of your own. So it's like You feel like you're chasing after someone sexually after they seduced you and then they withheld it from you. Sometimes you just got to remind yourself that you're human, you have a body of your own, and any sense of connection or intimacy that you felt like you had with them, that wasn't even real. It felt real to you, but there wasn't anything real coming from them. And when you realize that, it really helps to break that trauma bond. It really does. Because that's a big part about it. What keeps you trauma bonded is believing that it was real. I mean, that's really what keeps you chasing after them. Because if you really knew that it was fake, you wouldn't be chasing after anything. And this is why no contact is so important, because of course most narcissists are not just going to come to you and tell you that it was fake. They're not just going to tell you that they're a con artist, a manipulator. And instead they're going to do anything they can to make you think that it was real. They will just seduce you even more, devalue you, discredit you, make you feel like you're not real, you're not really you. And then by doing that, it makes you believe in them even more. Your belief gives it power. You validate this illusion. And of course, the more you do that, the more you just get lost in it. And it can be a horrible feeling sometimes. It's like when you're chasing after the narcissist and you text them, you're just checking your phone every minute that goes by. And because normally before, maybe they were texting you all the time, and just, even if 10 minutes went by, they would have responded by then. And then it's like the hours go by, you're looking at your phone, there's no response. It's like the clock is ticking, it's getting later and later. It's like 11 p.m, 12, 1 a.m. You should be asleep by now and you're just laying in bed. And you're just wondering where they are, who they're with. Wondering if they're being intimate with someone else. Maybe they're out at the club. And your heart is racing. And it's like in some ways it's exciting, but then at the same time, it just makes you feel like crap. And you just get stuck in it, you get lost in it. You just become addicted to this person. And they're just driving you crazy in your mind. And that's exactly what they want. They know the effect that they're having on you. It's exactly what they want to do to you, because it makes them feel relevant, significant. It makes them feel like their false self is real. When they've seduced you, they've got you under their thumb. And it could become addictive. Where you always feel like you're missing out on something with them. You want to see what they're doing, who they're with. And of course you get that dopamine rush anytime that you get their attention, you get them to notice you again. You feel like you got them coming back to you. Things are going to be better. But they use intermittent reinforcement. It just becomes this game of cat and mouse. Initially, they were chasing you, but by the end of it, you're then chasing them. You're chasing this illusion of who you think they are. It's kind of like Tom and Jerry. Did you ever notice how the Tom and Jerry cartoons, Tom is always really wound up. He's always really angry. And Jerry just doesn't even care. Because Tom is the one who's chasing Jerry. But it's interesting though, because with narcissists, it's often the other way around, at least initially. Like when they're chasing you, they act like they're so happy and that you should want to be involved with them. And as Jerry, you may be quite scared, afraid of being hurt, wondering who they are, or you may be quite excited about it. But then sometimes it does change later on, when they're pursuing you and then they're very angry. But then sometimes that could be us, when they trauma bond us, so we're chasing after them and we're really angry because they just got us so wrapped up in it. And they're just laughing about it. It's just a joke to them. It's just a game to these narcissists. Remember, they have no real identity, no sense of self. There's no real feelings of love or passion or anything like that. For them, it's just all about control. And they will do whatever they can to control you. Anything else you thought you had with them, they just mirrored that to you. It wasn't real. They can make it seem real. But you just gotta think, if it was real, then where is it now? Why didn't it continue? Because what you had, what you felt was real, and you didn't want it to stop. So why would they pull away, or why would they treat you differently if it was real on their part? And that's how you know that it wasn't real. That's how you know that they never felt anything of that way for you. They'll never feel that way for anyone. But what we really got to work on is just really developing our sense of self. Because of course you get involved with a narcissist and you can lose that temporarily. You can disconnect from yourself. You lose touch with who you are. And of course it becomes that way because you're dealing with someone who has no sense of self. But what really helps is when you're around people who also have a strong sense of self. It then brings out that characteristic in you as well. The problem is when we're around very weak, insecure people who don't know who they are, they don't care about who they are, so they don't care about who you are, then you just begin to lose touch with yourself. That's what happens. But yeah, all in all, they just want to be you. They want to have the traits, the characteristics that you possess. These wonderful qualities. Your consciousness and awareness. Your innocence. They want to deprave you. Immoralize you. Getting you to chase after them. Because before getting involved with them, before they traumatize you, you have this sense of innocence. You're not looking to chase after them. You're just looking to innocently play and have fun, get to know someone. But then they corrupt it. And it's because it's not enough for them. They want you. They want your qualities. But I'm gonna look through the live chat now. You got any questions, let me know. I will read them out and respond to them. Amanda Berger says, I don't know how I feel anymore. I just don't want anyone. I have no desire. Yeah, it can feel that way once you've been involved with narcissists, because they don't really have any desire. They just have pride and entitlement. They feel like everything just belongs to them anyway, so they don't really desire it. And they don't really have much of a sex drive. It's just all about control. So when you get around someone like that, it kind of rubs off on you. Amanda Cerise says, I just can't get my head around people so intentionally evil actually exist. Yeah, that was something that was very difficult for me to come to terms with. How people can be so evil, I just couldn't understand it. They have a lot of trauma and a lack of internal strength. No identity, no core values, no integrity. That's how they're able to behave in this way. Kate Morgan asks, why are you wearing sunglasses inside? Why not? Maybe you're new to the channel, but I've been wearing my sunglasses for a very long time. And this is my channel, so I'm allowed to do that. Okay says evil people are weak. Very true, it's weakness. People who are able to be good, kind, giving and generous, that's because they have strength. Evil people, they act that way out of weakness. It's because they lack the internal strength. So then they've got to try and get that strength and power externally. David Orchard says the cheating is the worst part, even if you have proof. That's it, even if you have proof, they will still gaslight you. And it's like, you may just continue going along with it, even though deep down you know that they have been cheating on you. But the more you go along with it, the more you feed into it, the worse it gets. The more it will just drive you insane. You have to accept it and then pull away. Red Rose Empire asks, will you ever know if the narcissist had their karma? You should already know. As a result of the things that they did to you. You really think a happy person is going to do anything like that? You think they're going to treat you in that way? Of course not. It reveals that they are miserable. And they're always going to be miserable. And that is a big part of their karma. The more that they do, the worse that it gets, the more that it affects their mental health. It just affects their mental health even more. Faith Lacroix, makeup artist, says at one point, you know you can't trust them with anything. Definitely you can't trust a narcissist with anything about you, including yourself. They will devalue it, degrade it, destroy it. You have to keep it away from them. Doctor says they want you to pay for their trauma. Joe Morgan asks, how do you deal with ruminating? I always had a little technique that I used. I don't really deal with ruminating anymore. I used to a long time ago when I was younger. I would be ruminating and I'd have insomnia. I went through a lot in my youth, especially as a result of relationships. And what I found really helped me, and I don't think I didn't even research about it at the time, but I kind of just learned on my own that all I had to do was to bring my conscious awareness to the fact that I am ruminating, I am overthinking, And then I would just repeat in my mind the words thinking. And I would just repeat it, thinking, thinking, because that's what I'm doing. And what can help is to realize that this is just you. This is your mind, your brain. That's ruminating. And you have the power to stop it. And what also can help is to recognize that there is this world out there with 8 billion people. And then there's all of these other planets and solar systems. And then bring your awareness back down to you and your brain, where you're just constantly thinking. That can help sometimes because it, what that technique does is it reduces the significance of your thoughts. And I'm not saying that your thoughts are insignificant. I'm not saying that sometimes you might have some really great ideas. But of course, this ruminating is disturbing you, it's harming you. So to defeat it, just recognize the insignificance of it and how your ruminating is not going to help you. It's not going to change anything. And another thing that you can do is journaling. So if you're up late at night and you can't sleep, you've got all of these thoughts going on in your mind, then just write it down on a piece of paper. Or maybe just even type it into your phone. And anytime that it comes up into your mind again, just remind yourself that you've written it down and you can check it the next day. Or just set aside a certain time of the day where you can reflect on it so that it doesn't disturb you throughout the day. But most importantly, you want to catch the awareness of it so that it doesn't keep running off on its own. But yeah, although I don't experience too much rumination now, I do remember earlier in my life, it was horrible. Just constant rumination, overthinking. It wasn't nice at all. But yeah, I hope these techniques will bring peace and comfort to you. Amanda Series says, not all narcissists have traumas from childhood. I'm sure some just like to be evil. I believe that they do all have some form of trauma. Of course, it's an illness, because otherwise what we're saying is evil is normal. And of course, evil is not normal. It has to be part of an illness. It has to be part of some kind of trauma, abuse, neglect, or even spoiling. That's abuse as well. And that could be a big part of it on us, because at some level we will all feel responsible, because we're a part of society. So we all play a part in this. And if some people are traumatized, they're going through something, it's like at some level that must be our fault as well. But then you have to recognize that it was before your time. What happened to them in their childhood, we weren't around to change that. And it's really society's fault. It's everyone's fault. We can't just blame the narcissist for what they went through in their childhood. We can't blame a child. The reality is that we can all do better. Because, yes, as a society, as a collective, we have failed these people. We let them down. We made them this way. And and not everyone may be far along enough in their healing journey to where they want to accept this. But this is the truth. Because they developed from our society. They developed around us. So when they were going through all of these things, all of these troubles, all of these problems, where was everyone? Where was everyone to help them, to listen to them, to give them a hug, to make them feel better? Where were they? Why didn't anyone care? And that's when you realize that it wasn't their fault. What happened to them wasn't their fault. And yes, that may have influenced how they turned out. But then a lot of people do go through some horrific things in life, and we manage to overcome it. Unfortunately, they were just very weak. They weren't able to overcome their struggles, and they became evil. But still, the reality is that they wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that had we lived in a better society with better people. So, however you look at it, society, people, they are to blame. And I'm not saying that justifies anything that they do. Of course not. They're still to blame for that. They're to blame for the things that they have done to us. But then we have to accept that, yes, society let them down. And maybe that's why they're so angry. Because of the injustice and what was done to them. Of course, no one deserves to be treated that way, especially a child. I'm just here to protect the victims and to make them aware, so that they can navigate through the abuse, they can get through it, they can keep themselves safe. Lorraine Diane says, you looked at them with love. They looked at you with contempt. Yeah, that's because they know that they're just mirroring you. So when you're looking at them with love, they can see that it's just you love yourself and they don't love themselves. So that's why when they're mirroring you, they just end up hating you. Because they know they're using a false self. They know that their true self is not good enough. Lorraine Dan says these videos of yours are calming, soothing, uplifting. They give us the added strength to keep these evil, manipulative monsters away. Glad to hear that, Lorraine. Thank you for the kind words. Nala's just laying down over there. She's been eating her tuna. But yeah, let's now bring this video to an end. How narcissists feel when you don't chase them. They feel much better when you do. The city in Malaysia. I remember I saw that building, I don't know if you can see it. It's the smaller one. There, where my finger is. I remember driving past that video. I remember driving past that building in a taxi about, I think this was 4 years ago. Malaysia was a very different place back then. I don't know what it was. Like the people here just seemed a lot more traditional, more reserved. Malaysia's a very different place now. In the last 4 years, it's changed so much. And I notice it changed gradually because I've been here quite a lot over the last 4 years. Maybe for around 2 years. It just changed gradually. But this is just the way the world is. Everything's changing in the world. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Hit subscribe, click all notifications to be notified when I go live again. I appreciate all donations, no matter how small. You can donate to my PayPal. It is paypal.me/Narc Survivor. If you would like to book a one-on-one coaching session with me, go to my website. It's narcsurvivor.co.uk. And follow me on Instagram. It's Narc Survivor YouTube. Thank you all for joining me on another Narc Survivor live video, live from the city here in Malaysia. You all have a great day or evening, wherever you are in the world. And I will talk to you soon.